A pleasant Thursday evening, another edition, in fact, a third of the State of Black Hartford. Here on Access TV, there's been some exciting moments, and what's important is for the audience participation. And our panelists were very excited. We have a new panelist this evening by the name of Brian Johnson. And earlier in speaking with Brian, we talked about back in the day when his dad would make him watch Lou Brown on Channel 30 News. You know, I take that as a compliment very seriously. But the importance of this program is monumental in this day and age. I'm a strong believer that the urban media, whether it be electronic or the print, is vital in 2016. And our panelists, why don't you introduce yourselves, starting from left to right. Introduce yourself, and don't take for granted that we all know who you are.
Good evening. I'm Arjo Winch. I serve on the Hartford City Council. I also chair Labor, Education, Workforce, and Youth. So I'm glad for the subject matter today. And I just wanted to mention to our moderator that, you mentioned that relationship between you and our new panelists. Those are some of the things that our children, are missing these days. They don't have that entrenched, long-term pass-on relationships, which leads to some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today.
Thank you.
My name is Pastor Marcus Messiah Jarvis. I am a community activist, father, a husband. I've been in the union for Carpenters Local 43 for 25, 30 years. I'm also a contractor and a musician and a singer.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Johnson. By profession, I am a social worker for a mental health agency, actually in Springfield, not Hartford, because Hartford wouldn't hire me. And it's a pleasure for me to be here.
Russell Williams. I'm currently working as a minister myself, actually at the New Antioch Missionary Baptist Church on Nelson Street in the north end of Hartford. I guess that's considered my primary claim to fame at this point, but I'm an activist, if you will, someone who's been working with the Center for Economic and Social Justice, which is a think tank out of Alexandria, Virginia, who has been focusing on actually the curing of poverty in our country for over 40 years. And I guess that's the capacity that I'll act in tonight. But obviously I've been a part of this community personally for over 30 plus years, part of the insurance industry for over 30 years as well, a former commissioner with the state of Connecticut's Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, also a former NAACP president.
Thank you very much, Brother Williams. And I would say to the audience, or the viewers, please, while we will not allow anonymous postings, we're going to do anonymous here. If you ask a question, we're receptive to it, and you'll be responded to in a civil way. No anonymous postings here. That's a long story, but that's how we work. In terms of the panel, wow. Pastor, Joe, Brian, Russell, I'm honored. Just like we won't censor the audience, you won't be censored. Let it hang out with some civility. What has to be said, what has to be said. The first question, give me one or two issues as it relates to our youth and violence and how they relate to the state of Black Hartford.
I guess I got the mic, I'm going first.
Yes.
One of the things that I also admitted that I'm also the host of All Politics is Local on AccessTV.org, the owner of a small business Classic Creations Childcare, and also a union organizer for SEIU Local 2001, the Child Care Providers Union. And one of the things that I believe is plaguing our children is that not all children are treated equal. In the city of Hartford, it's unfortunate that children are treated depending on what their address is, what their location is,
What their zip code is.
what their zip code is. And that's one of the things that I think is that sometimes we lend our children to make choices, and not any of them are good choices. So when they make bad choices, then of course they're gonna, either get in trouble, line up with friends that they should not be with, because a lot of times parents are absent from the home, and not every parent that's absent from the home is in the street. A lot of parents who are absent from the home are at work, and so children begin to be unattended to because parents thinking that children are supposed to be responsible, while they're out making sure that they can earn bread to put food on the table, that the child is doing what they're supposed to be doing, but not always. So that's one of the things that I think that, lends our children to get into trouble, and they look for compassion and commitment and social, belonging places. And it might seem like an innocent place to begin with, but then you start getting, instead of having those belonging skills, you start getting into survival mode. And so once any individual gets into a survival mode, protection of self becomes first. And because our children don't have a lot of conflict resolution skills, then they don't know how to resolve conflict without somebody getting hurt or somebody making sure that that person don't rise to be able to do, harm to them again. So those are just ideas and some of the things that I think are causing the violence inside our communities, and unfortunately, it predominantly faces Black children.
Thank you very much. And Pastor?
I could speak to this on many levels. I'm a father of 6 children, 5 of which I raised. I'm also a pastor. I moved from East Hartford, Glastonbury borderline to move into Hartford because I didn't want to shepherd where I didn't live, and I didn't want to live where I didn't shepherd. And I remember a young woman came across the street and asked if her children could play in my yard because her son was playing basketball at Sigourney Park and had gotten jumped. And this started a series of events. So I can speak to you from experience. I mean, we could look at all the statistics and all the educational background, but there's nothing like feet, boots on the ground. And so I started getting to know some of these kids, and I work in construction. Started out maybe 2, 3 children. Now I come home and there's 25, 30 kids playing basketball in my yard. They come from different backgrounds. They're not all the same. They may live in the same neighborhood, but not all of them, their parents have had the same experience. It's kind of luck of the draw in terms of your economic background, how dark-skinned you look, how light-skinned you look, how you fit into the community. And I would come home, and these kids that are 15 and 16, some as young as 14, 13 years old, hey, Pastor, we see that you do construction. Can I get a job? And so there's this false image that's portrayed in the media that inner city kids or children in the quote-unquote hood, or what they would call the ghetto, are just prone to violence or just want to get in trouble, or just or mischievous. They're not. I would dare to say that 75 to 80% of them want to do something. They just don't know where or how to do it. And so I had an experience with a young man, I won't keep you long, where a group of kids was jumping on, and I'm going to say it because this is what happened, a white lady at Sigourney Park. And my wife and I were riding the bike through the park, because I believe in not being afraid of where I live. You've got to take back your neighborhoods and be the parent, not just in the home, but outside the home. Sometimes it may cost you, and maybe even your life. And so these kids were jumping on this white lady, and my wife and I, we looked, if we didn't stop, they were going to kill this woman. I mean, they were hitting her in the head with the metal garbage can, they were kicking her, they were beating on her. And so I jumped in and stopped. I said, stop this. And everyone ran except for this one kid. And this kid couldn't have weighed more than 115, 120 pounds. It could have been more than maybe 5'2", 5'3". And he squared off on me. He wasn't afraid of anything. That has to tell you that, just remember that. These kids are not afraid of anything, including death. And so something about this kid struck me, and I says, you know what? Those are the kind of people I want at my church. And so I got to talking to this kid. 2 weeks later, that same kid saved my life. I was on my way to my high school class reunion, and some kids were at the skateboard park downtown throwing sticks and rocks over the wall at cars, bored. No adult supervision. You know what I'm saying? No accountability. Where are you? Who are you with? How long are you going to be there? When are you coming back? No, they're just downtown doing whatever. And so me being the person that I am, like I said, I'm not afraid to parent outside the home and inside the home. I walked up into the park in my white suit. I was dressed in my reunion and told the kid that the next thing going over the wall was going to be him.
So those personal anecdotal stories you.
And so these 25, 30 kids are ready to jump me. And the littlest kid of them all, same kid that was in the park, that was squared off of me. All these other kids were afraid of him. They said, no, that's Rev. Whatever you do to him, you're going to have to do to me. And they all backed off. I said all that to say this. These children just need good parents. They need opportunity. They need love.
Go ahead.
There's nobody home to validate who they are. And so they're in protection mode, like Arjo Wentz said. They're in survival mode. There is no one to call when they get in trouble. They have to defend themselves by any means necessary. That's all that they know. And they're mixed in with the kids that do have parents. And so there's all that peer pressure that's going on back and forth. And we've turned a blind eye to them. We've socially promoted them through the system. I've had children there's children to me. They're 16, 17, 18, 19, but they're children to me that I've had to train who had high school diplomas how to do basic math.
You got
You know? So we need stronger parenting in our community.
There's no question that the state of our youngsters relate to the state of Black Hartford. No question. Thank you, Pastor. Brian, you're in the field of social work,
Yes.
and that same question to you is, give me one or two issues as it relates to youth and violence and how they relate to the state of Black Hartford.
And understanding the question, I got to preface it by saying there's a multitude of issues that contribute to violence, especially amongst youth, violence in our society as a whole. I'm one to believe that it is a condition of poverty, but it's heightened in the Black community because of the extensive amount of poverty in the Black community. I think people resort to violence, be it a youth or an adult, in part because we tend to use our skills. And if we are lacking a lot of skills for conflict resolution, violence is one that's easiest to teach and is readily available because a lot of our kids have witnessed it for a while, and unfortunately they have seen conflicts resolved through violence. So it's a learned behavior in our community.
So what are you seeing in your daily work? What are you seeing? Have you seen it rising, and how much of an effect does the media have, in your opinion?
Well, with a lot of people that I see, and I have to relate it back to poverty, you're dealing with households that are underserved. So you have a mom that is incapable, not unwilling, just incapable of providing the nurturing, the social stimulation, and some of the foundational tools for someone to be successful. So then they go into a system, education system, that is racially biased, a lot of behaviors, and they're punitive. So a lot of behaviors which I would say 20 years ago when I was watching the Lou Brown show, would be handled a lot differently. So there's a punitive atmosphere that goes on in school. So you have a kid that's not prepared, he goes into a system that then really at a young age starts to criminalize, behaviors like not listening and stuff like that.
I appreciate that. And in terms of myself, my dedication, I'm a product of public housing, a product of the street. And there were people in our community who, in fact, helped me, like Arjo and Pastor and yourself. And so I want to hear from the elder on this panel, if you will, Russell Williams.
The contributors to violence for youth, I guess I would say, I would start with a lack of hope. I think that hope, on a very basic level, means being able to look forward to something in your future.
I don't disagree with you, but I hope, it's all about, we've got to admit that hope is on a tight rope. So how do we deal with it, brother?
Well, I think that, it's a matter of perspective. I think hope has always been on a tightrope. I mean, if you really look back at your history, if you look at how far we've come, a lot of what I think is happening now really isn't new. It may seem new to those who are now engaged and who are now a part of it, but it is a part of the history, if you will, and the development of a people. So, you wanted to say something?
No, go right ahead. I was gonna.
Well, I think that's one of the factors is a lack of hope, and I think that there's a number of ways to regain that. But I think that unfortunately too, a lot of the problems that exist, I think now, have to do with who people listen to, and how they decide whom to listen to. Because when you listen, to people who actually have no hope, then how can you have hope yourself? You can't do it. I don't want to go too far because I know there's a lot more conversation to be had. But I want to say for the record too, I agree with the panel. I think they're right on point. Poverty and the disconnect between kids and their surroundings, and but there still needs to be something, if you will, that is an indication to those who are part of North Hartford that we have the same abilities to prosper and to live well as any other community that exists out there.
There's no question about that. What we've got to do is take a break.
I want to comment to that first before we take a break. I want to comment to that first.
Because we're going to go to the audience. But go ahead.
Huh?
We understand that PA. Listen, Rep.
Okay.
No. Listen, I hear you. Now, let me say something to you. You're concerned about yourself and this community. You feel deeply. Real warriors still cry. Never be ashamed of that. Never be ashamed of that, my brother. And I'm just simply saying, this is not a pity party. The plans of the executive producer is to come up with some solution. And now, when the state of Black Hartford returns, we're going to ask the question I just asked of the panelists, of our in-house audience, if you will. And again, those viewers, if you have any comments, direct them to Access TV and Stan McCauley. We'll be right back.
To the residents of Hartford, you put your trust in us, and we will honor that trust with transparency, with accountability, and with tireless hard work. We can't do it alone. Whether you put some new paint on your house, plant a new garden, mentor a neighbor, form a block watch, join your NRZ, in whatever way feels right to you, join us and put your shoulder to the wheel. This is your city, and your city needs you.
And it's time for us to stop being apologetic for wanting to be independent, self-sufficient, and being able to take care of ourselves, so we're no longer a ward of the state. And we need to make that declaration known, that Hartford is open for business, and we are not apologizing to anyone anymore. It's time to stop being reactionary and taking our rightful place as the municipal government of the capital city of the richest state in the nation, and stop saying we are sorry. Our time has come.
Welcome back to the State of Black Hartford, and again, this is our third show, and there are more to come. What's important is the audience participation, the audience in the room. And I look around the room at such wonderful, bright people who are here, and you play an important role, and don't forget that. So, by raising your hand, let me know that question again about violence and how it relates. Brother Lovejoy.
Yes, sir. So again, the question is about youth violence and how it relates to the state of Black Hartford.
Right.
Brother, I think it's a critical issue that we're dealing with in our city, one that won't just go away, and in my opinion is merely a symptom of the state of Black Hartford. When we talk about the economics, the quality of education or lack thereof, the quality of life that families are living and that these children are coming from, the violence, again, is a manifestation, a symptom of a greater pathology, a greater disease in our community. So I think it definitely is related.
Thank you very much, Mr. Imam Kevin Lovejoy. And some more people from the audience who can, why don't you just pass that mic on? And this young lady here is involved through the city. She's no longer there, unfortunately. But with young people, I'm very serious. I'm not Nadine, you know I'm not assistant. And she should be down there. I watched her being very friendly, customer friendly, and knowing people in some difficult situations. She's involved in something now still with the bicycle program.
Yes, my name is Nadine, and what I see in our community is we as a people are not teaching our youth to love our neighbors. Once we as parents to teach our children that we are all the same and we are all going down the same road, and we all look alike, and we should love our neighbors. Amen. Down the street, across the street, across town, round the corner. These are the people that we should love because these are the people that we see every day. Now, one thing in my community, in my neighborhood, I have my neighbors, they watch my house. You know why? Because when I get out my car, I say, hey, how you doing over there? And I asked them, how are you doing? How could I help you? I even got to the point where I bought pie. I bake pies. I brought a cake. I bought a pie over there.
I've been waiting for one of those pies.
I made friends to my neighbors. And I know my neighbors will protect me because I'm one of their friends. So until we break that barrier of being scared to speak to our neighbors, when your neighbors is right there to protect you, my mother taught us your neighbors will protect you at all times. They tell you who came to your house, what color car they had. They tell you their license plate number. They tell you everything. Miss Muhammad, so and so came to your house. They came to the back and the front.
Wow.
And they would tell you because they're your friend.
Why are we afraid? That might be the next. Why are we afraid to leave our comfort zones?
Yes.
Why are we afraid to leave our comfort zones? Why are we afraid to leave our comfort zone? And we're talking about our young folk. No, seriously.
Working with young people over 20 years in school systems, in Hartford mostly. Make sure you get the phone close. Hold that mic up.
Hold it closer.
There's a trust that's not there with our children.
All right.
And so they stay in this place because they don't trust. They're not loved the way our generation was loved.
By the way, myself and Tsunami came through together from the sandbox in Bellevue Square.
Yes.
You're exactly right.
Yes.
You're exactly right.
When you went outside, you stepped outside, like we were saying earlier, we lived in the village.
Right.
Everybody was out the window checking us out. If we went astray, by the time you got back home, your mama was singing, Nella called me. So what were you doing? And you knew you better not lie. But today, we don't have the village. The system has taken away our raising our children. The system has allowed the children to think they're the boss with the hot sauce. And because of that, today, we're in a state of affairs that we, as elders, have to start bringing our children in ourselves. It's our responsibility. Whether we do it in the homes, outside of the homes, everyone that's sitting in this room has the responsibility to grab 1, 2, 3 groups of our children to let them know they are loved, to let them know they can trust us.
Our panel talked about that thing, Chris, but and if we did to our children today what Miss Dixon would do to Lou Brown there in Bellevue Square, this is what the pastor's talking about. If we did, the courts would put us in jail.
I was saying that to a group of children yesterday.
The courts would put us in jail. I covered the courts, and it's outrageous.
I was having a say with them. And I said, today, if I did to my grandchildren what my mother did to me, I would be in jail serving time because it's against the law to chastise your child within a reasonable way. And so, what is the lesson for the child when that is being done? Who's the boss and who is in control of their family?
Are there any more in the audience? Right in back of you, the young lady is Miss Sanders. No relationship to the Senator Sanders.
No relationship, but I've moved on. All right. So your most recent question was about comfort zones, although I want to go back to the previous question, but when you said about people stepping outside their comfort zone, somebody might look at me and wonder if I feel comfortable here. Well, I do, because I'm used to going to all different types of situations and being with people not my color. I was fortunate in that my parents raised me in a multicultural environment. I grew up in the housing projects in New Britain, Connecticut. And I've been living in Hartford for 20 years and feel free to mingle with different brothers and sisters, so that's not an issue. But as far as our children, I have mixed race children and mixed race grandchildren. And I agree with all the panelists about the cause of the youth and the violence and the state of Black Hartford, raising 3 brown grandchildren in Hartford now, ages of 12, 18, and 19. So I have an 18 and 19-year-old grandsons looking for work and can't find any. I have one who's a 12th grader over at Capitol Prep. I have the 19-year-old who was bounced out of 3 schools because of the intolerancy that Mr. Brian Johnson alluded to. Minor things that kids do in school that ends them up with a 10-day suspension. When they go back, they're floundering. They feel like they have to act up instead of acting like they don't know the work, so they'd rather be the clown. So you got kids moving, in and out of all these different school systems. And it is, as Arjo said, about the zip code they live in, but it's also about the color of their skin. Because no matter what school they're in, if they're in a private school, in a magnet school, if they're being shipped to Southington or some other school district, they're still being treated differently if they're not white, unfortunately.
I appreciate that.
So these kids, I just want to finish up because they don't have that hope because they're being treated, unfortunately, like crap by a lot of their teachers, by law enforcement officials who stop and frisk them and racially profile them. And so, of course, they're not going to have hope for a better future until they be around more positive role models like some of our panel members. And I appreciate all their work they're doing with our young people.
When are we going to acknowledge the fact in our society that race matters?
Yes,
Don't get uncomfortable. I didn't call anybody a racist, but race matters. And we seem to not want to take that gorilla off the table. And until we do, take that gorilla off the table, in my opinion, we're like Don Quixote fighting windmills. It's an issue that we must deal with. Or if we continue, we're in a desperate situation. Donald Trump is a degenerate sociopath. Sociopath. And we allow him white privilege. Now, I'm not a racist. Let me make it clear though. Then the Republican Party talked about he kidnapped the Republican Party. No. He found an atmosphere in there. And then even with Sanders, we were talking about Sanders earlier, the fact that Sanders, his supporters, booed him. Well, because they got that same thinking, in my opinion. That negative thinking. Aren't we all God's children?
Amen.
Aren't we all God's children? Okay, is someone who hasn't spoke?
I just want to say one thing about what this young lady was saying about the youth not having jobs. And I think at this point in time, it's time for us to pull our resources and make a job for ourselves. It's time to take our youth, put them together, and create a job for ourselves. We have to stop begging and begging and begging for jobs for our youth because they're not going to give them to us. So what we do, pull our resources and make a job for them. There's so many things in this world that we could do for ourselves.
As adults.
It's time to build a company for our youth and get them a job and make them a job.
Thank you.
Companies. Yes.
Somebody back. Go ahead. Right.
Okay, hi, I'm Martha from the North End, and I'd like to agree with many of the people who've already spoken in general that the situation of youth reflects generally the state of Black Hartford. but also I'm going to pick up on the comfort zone issue too, because I don't look like everybody around me where I live. And today I spoke to some young people at the library. They had beautiful bikes, beautiful new bikes, but I had just recently been at an event that was intended to help kids both with bikes and bike repair, but also bike safety. Because I see so many kids riding around without helmets and without lights after dark, that I've been concerned about bike safety for kids for a long time, and I'm glad to see some people doing it. And short of finding jobs immediately for kids, it's good to see that there's some wonderful programs. I want to thank Ms. Nadine here for giving me a flyer about a youth bike-a-thon that's later in August. That's a good thing. So anyway, I'm chiming in more than anything else. But the situation of youth is reflective of the whole city and of the situation of their parents. And whether kids have hope in some ways depends on whether they see their parents being able to find employment. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that we have at least one more person who wants to sit there. And Michelle, we've been together as a family 3 weeks, and we're on a first name basis. And it's all due respect, Mrs.
Yes, sir. Well, when I think of youth and violence, and we're looking at the youth, but what we've been taught is anytime there's a problem in the body, you have to look at the head.
Right.
So who's the head of our youth? Parents, certainly. So if our children are violent, as parents, a lot of times we don't want to take responsibility for, some of our parenting. I know I didn't get a parenting class. I didn't get a handbook ahead of time. And, in retrospect, now I would hope that I would do things better. But what I'm finding with our youth is that they're mimicking us. But we don't want to take responsibility for a product that we created. And we're talking about the state of Black Hartford. We can identify the problems all day. As brother said, they're not new. If anything, they're just getting bigger.
I call them a pity party.
Right. So at some point, we have to put a pin in it. And there's a couple of things that I'm hearing from my sisters and my brothers is that we have to do it, not someone else.
That's right.
I'm also hearing that if we did this, because I was raised in a village too, and whatever I did, in each house on the way, I got a whooping.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah.
A whooping?
A whooping.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
A spanking. The rod that they want us to fear.
Don't bring back the small branch.
Certainly, there's a difference. Exactly.
Don't bring back the small
There's a difference
branch.
between discipline and abuse.
Don't you bring back the small branch.
What they've done is they've made us buy into not disciplining our children because of the fear of law.
Yes.
Now, I'm not a proponent of abuse. However, I am a proponent of discipline. And like I told my children when I saw this turn come in, because every family probably has that one child that when they started talking to them at school about certain things, you knew that was going to be the child that brought these people into your home. So that's the conversation I had with this particular child. I discipline. I strive not to abuse. If you don't want to be disciplined, when you bring them to my home, have your bag packed, because you are going with them. Because I refuse to be terrorized by someone that I brought into the world. So, we allow ourselves to be ruled by certain things. And I'm starting to learn in my advanced stage. I'm starting to learn that, you know who makes laws? People. Okay? We don't have to accept if we take responsibility for our community. We don't have to accept certain things. So people who are doing these things, we need to be monitoring them. So we need to monitor at home. We need to draw the line in the sand in our home. And we have to learn to love. Love is not just, like I tell my children, I would love to be your friend, And on some levels, when they get older, you can do that. But while you're young, like my mother always said to me, I would be less than a mother if I was your friend instead of your mother. So there's certain things that I'm going to do. So there's a duty, and that's what we were hearing about all of us who were raised in the village.
Exactly.
We knew we were loved because of how we were handled,
Indeed.
not a warm, fuzzy feeling that let us get away with madness. So,
Amen.
there's so much that we could talk about. The comfort zone, I think, for us is that we know, as you mentioned, it's an issue of race. Okay? Deal with it.
Deal with it.
That's a rock that's been thrown at us. I'm not going to be held hostage by someone else throwing a rock at me.
Yes.
So that is the issue. I'm sorry it makes other people uncomfortable, but that's what you brought to the table. So we're going to deal with that, and we have a responsibility to our children to love, but the love, like I said, is not just fuzzy. It's a responsibility that we have to them to make sure they're being taught the right thing, because violence is not just physical. Violence is also allowing them to continue to be miseducated.
I don't want to cut you off, but I want to get to the panels because you incited this here. You've incited this conversation, this dialogue. I mean it very sincerely. And so I want to get back to our panelists as soon as possible. And Councilwoman Cynthia Jennings.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I became a member of the Nation of Islam because of the love you feel every time you go in. And even if you don't give people the greeting, they say, Assalamu alaikum, you got an attitude, you can be brought up on charges and be dismissed, all right? And so people show love and respect, and I really appreciate that. The other thing that I really like about the Nation is, the whole philosophy of do for self. One of the things, I have a lot of skills and talent, people know that, and so do so many other people. But, for this Saturday, from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, every Saturday, I provide a free class training trainers to teach our children to be mathematicians. Right. Okay, so we have the first graduation of about 10 to 15 individuals who've completed the program, and now the next phase is that they go into an internship, just like a physician, where you actually go out and team train and teach what you just learned to young people. All right, now the other thing that I spent all day doing was going to flight schools, because almost every one of our children want to learn to fly, and there are children that actually can have their pilot's license by the time they're 17 years old. They can get in a cockpit and have solo time at 14 years old. This costs about $11,000 a year per child, and they will end up through the flight training school and with their FAA certificate to fly anywhere in the country. So our children, it costs us $16,000 a year at the Board of Ed to educate our children. We can pull our children out, have the board pay for this flight training, and have our children become pilots.
I don't have the voice as Pastor has, but a while back there was a song entitled, I Believe I Can Fly.
That's right.
And I'm simply saying, pilots, why not?
Exactly. And they just I think the governor cut the flight school, so that, not the flight school, the governor cut the school that trains you to build aircraft engines. But for $6,000 a year, you can learn how to build aircraft engines, and before you graduate, you have a job at Pratt & Whitney, and you also have a job right there at Brainerd Field, right in Hartford, where you can build and fix the aircraft that are in there. I went in and they introduced me to this gentleman, and I said, how are you? He said, how are you? You're the one who got me this job. And I realized I was working in the State Department of Education and promoting people to go into that aircraft school. So we have to use our skills. We must do for self, and we have to understand that it is our turn to rule and lead our children.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Cynthia Jennings. We're going to take a break right here, and we're going to go to our panelists who have been very patient. But there's a feeling here tonight, this third week of the state of Black Hartford is a feeling, is a family factor. And it's not a pity party. And we're getting our message out there with the audience participation and those at home. And we'll take this break and be right back with more of the state of Black Hartford.
My name is J. Stan McCauley, and I do business as Light Source Productions. I provide professional services in the area of strategic video communications. First, what we do is we help you craft your message using what I call the rule of the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. We do event documentation, content acquisition, full-scale productions, editing, and of course distribution through our social media television network. And with social media, video is more important now than it has ever been. Whether you're talking big business, small business, nonprofit, church, or just an individual. Let's say you plan you're planning an event, a wedding, whatever the case may be. But let's say a big event, but no video. And you spent all this time, all these hours to put this event on, and maybe 100, 200 people attend the event. But more important than that is that thousands could attend by watching it on social media. But of course, you don't think about this until after the event is over. You can't afford not to capture it for social media. And despite what people think, I am affordable. Give me a call. Let's plan your next video project and share it with the world on my social media television network. I promise you that you will have the attention of one person, me.
And welcome back to the state of Black Hartford. It's an important part to emphasize the fact that this is not a pity party. With the participation of people in the audience, and we've heard some wonderful comments. And solutions. I want to say that if you watch Access TV, every member of the panel, you're going to hear more from them because the time is limited in this setting. But turn to Access TV and you'll see them with their individual programs. And they have to produce their programs. And so they work hard. And I'm sure that whatever they can't say here, they'll be able to say in their program. Solutions. Solution to these issues.
One of the things that I'm going to read exactly what I wrote so I can stay on point and don't be long. Nope, it's going to be like a minute and a half. One of the things that I think we must do is, now that we're talking about, race and the issues that are important, we got to continue to widen the lines of communication. We need to listen to people and accept their reality. Stop telling women that they're not going through what they tell you they're going through. All of us don't live in the same America. We can no longer close our eyes and act like everyone lives in the same place. Younger people coming up today don't have the communications that we have. We talked about that earlier today. When we grew up together, we lived together, we went to school together, we played together. Our moms knew other kids' moms. Nowadays, we bust our kids out of their community. They don't know the child who lives next door. So they don't know their neighbors. So it's difficult for them to take care of somebody who they don't know. As parents, it is hard for us to get our children to understand why they should take care of their neighbors. I know in my family, like my sister mentioned earlier, that all of us are civic-minded to take care of our community, but our children don't possess the same mind that we did because they don't know their neighbors. They don't know the people who live next door to them as closely as we did. So that's one of the rich things that we're missing. And this is derail for a moment, because I do all politics as local. Let's talk about the Democratic Party. One of the reasons that I think that we're having an issue right now, in the Democratic Party is because we had an outsider, Bernie Sanders, who joined the party just to run for the highest office of the party. And the younger people who are getting engaged into the process didn't understand that at this point, Bernie knew he was going to get to the endorsed candidate, that he was going to have to go there. But the problem was that he didn't remind the children and the younger people who came with him that this is where we were going to go. So when we're a family, we fight with each other. But then once you win, you bring everybody with you to support the winner. So, and the kids are miscommunicating. And so now they're lost and they're angry. And we got to find somewhere to put them and make sure that they get on the page. Because why would you not support the person who invested more than 40 years of their life in a party. Not only celebrating themselves, working with themselves, but working with everybody in the party. And then when it's come time for that person to be accelerated, when it comes time for men to be promoted, people don't have a problem with that. When it comes time for women to be promoted, now we have a problem. So I don't understand why they don't understand, but I really do, because we got to make sure that as you're moving people along, that you educate them, let them know where you're going to go and where you're going to end up. And then this is how we're going to get there.
Speaking of education, I'm going to pass it on. Here's the question. Is Chef versus O'Neill, has it outlived its youthfulness?
Well, let me answer that question. Wait. Let me answer the question.
No, that's not just for you. That's,
Yeah, I'm gonna answer. Can I answer?
Maybe on your programs.
Let me answer.
Has Chef versus O'Neill, for the situation you just described,
Right.
and I was in a situation where they were...
Y'all fighting the wrong battle.
No,
Okay. No, we're on point. No, we're on point. We're talking about children. We're talking about violence. We're talking about education. We're talking about community. So all of this stuff ties together. The fact that our children, to get to your question, the parent of the child who wanted to make sure that her child had opportunity to get a good education did not foresee that in the future that this is what the system would do to her program. Because she don't recognize Chef versus O'Neill from what she wanted to what it is right now today, no. So it has generally grown, so there's a disadvantage to our children rather than an advantage.
Go ahead, brother.
It's called the White House. It was built by us, but it was not built for us. It's a white supremacist system, Republican and or Democratic. You've got Donald Trump, okay? That's what we call a Southern cracker, okay? You've got Hillary Clinton. That's what we call a Northern Yankee. They both own slaves, okay? They don't look like us. They do not identify with us. As a matter of fact, their granddaddies own slaves. Okay? And Margaret Sagan, who is Hillary Clinton's, what she calls her mentor, is responsible for Planned Parenthood being in all the ghettos. Under the Clinton administration, more black people were incarcerated. So my answers to the youth in my city or my community or in my nation, okay, because we've always been a nation within a nation, is not coming from the White House. You hit the nail on the head when you said the solution lies within us. Chef versus O'Neill was about getting a good education, not integrated education, because they said, okay, we're going to make you assimilate and teach you everything that's not about you. And so you became something else. It took 400 years to make a slave. What is a slave? You have to ask yourself that question. How long will it take for us to make a man and a woman? We have been raped, sodomized, lynched, emasculated, miseducated, stolen, plundered our identity. We were not born this way. This is not our normal mode of operation. America has blood on her hands.
What is the solution?
And the blood of the innocent is crying from the ground. Justice is 9 months pregnant and her water has broken. The law of reciprocity, the order of operation as it pertains to sowing and reaping is universal. So I have to tell you this. We are at a point now where we don't have a choice because the chickens have come home to roost, okay? And now the system that they built is collapsing not just on us, but on them too. So it, like Martin said, I fear I have integrated my people into a burning house. The house is on fire. So what do? You get out of the house. You remove yourself from the system. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. We need to start our own party. This is not the state of Democratic Black Hartford. This is not the state of Republican Black Hartford. This is the state of Black Hartford. It doesn't matter what party you belong to. I'm about this party, the party that looks like me. And it's my responsibility as a pastor and as a parent not to look to somebody else that never liked me in the first place to take care of my own. It's time to take your children out of their school system. It's time to take your money out of their banks. It's time to take your money out of their taxation without representation government. They don't even represent their own. Like my grandfather said, do not think that you're special because you're black. They practice on themselves before they got to you.
Okay. Again, solution. solution.
Wow, that's tough to follow.
We don't disagree with him. What's the solution?
Yeah, the solution.
What's the
And this
solution?
question is about youth and black violence. So the solution to me, and I just got to speak on a few things that were said. I was sitting here and kind of holding my tongue a little bit. As a rule for myself, I just don't agree with any type of violence, even if it's within the context of discipline. We know it's not effective. If you strike someone, even in the context of trying to teach them, it's not going to work. I mean, we were struck in the fields for a lot of years because we weren't working fast enough. So if a kid is not behaving, I don't agree with striking them on any level. It's something that's aggressive and angry. The solution, I know in my field, and even with my kids as I was raising them, it's important that we build a rapport with the youth. One of the things that I kept hearing that did make me a little bit uneasy is talking about back in the day. We're not back in the day. We're not in the 80s, the 60s, the 70s. We're in 2016. Kids communicate a little bit differently. So I do a disservice if I go in there talking about what my mama would have did and what my dad would have did. I need to. There's a thing that we say in social work about meeting people in their environment. So I need to be able to address the kids where they stand at and not tell them what they need to do or what I did years ago. So once we build that rapport, we have an opportunity for what we call a common ground. And once we reach that common ground, then we can start working on some of these solutions. I'll say there's one last thing.
Go ahead, Ron.
I don't think that it's a lost cause. I do think that we have parents, and I've seen them, I work with them every week, that just are incapable. They're not unwilling, but they're just incapable. And when those situations arise, we do need to have supports in place as a collective. We can spend all day talking about what the problem is, but there are people that have real problems. I talk to mothers that don't have no food. I mean, so we're talking about doing all these other things. I mean, if your child doesn't have food, you're operating under duress, and it's hard to make conscious decisions. So we need to be better at identifying those people in our community and putting the supports in place, whatever the support is. And it varies from person to person.
Thank you very much, brother. And the elder, Mr. Williams.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is the part I really enjoy because I consider myself a solution-oriented kind of person. I think what is fundamentally important is that we understand that democracy, America, democracy, is really just an idea.
Thank you.
It's an idea. Now, the union hasn't been perfected, which they all say, but I think part of our fundamental misunderstanding is that somehow politics and that this American system that we have is somehow a panacea, that it can solve all the problems that we have. Now, it can't. Politics, government cannot solve all the problems that we have. Now, when you say solutions, I tend to agree with Sister Donnie. We do have to find the solutions within ourselves. But the other part of this democracy that we live in is called capitalism. Yes. And understanding what capitalism is helps you to understand how the other part of the system works and why it works the way it works. Like, for example, most people, if you ask them what is money and where money comes from, they just assume that because you have a job, you will be compensated with money. And it's money that I think that has really blinded us in a lot of ways because we sincerely think we know what it is when we, quite frankly, we don't. That's right. Really don't. U.S. currency is U.S. currency. That's not the same currency they use in Saudi Arabia and in other places. And I've had part of this discussion with other people, and without sounding, too sophisticated and too complicated and talking beyond people's head,
over people's head. The need for us to have a fundamental understanding of democracy and capitalism is the very beginning of understanding how we solve the problems that exist within our community. The reason I say that is because at the end of the day, most people in politics or whatever will tell you it's the economy, stupid. We need an economy within our community that makes us viable without having to have to worry about whether or not something outside of our neighborhoods is going to participate in it.
That's very much valuable.
But you have to decide, and we have to decide who we're going to listen to. Because there are some who I think sincerely believe that they have, the answer when it's really not a the answer kind of situation. There are many answers. There are many answers.
Everybody doesn't have the same opinion.
And that's absolutely correct. So, and that's where I think we have to.
Need money.
Well,
amen.
And I think we all have to understand that there are those of us who are more equipped, have different skill sets, have different abilities to handle different problems that are all a part of the tapestry that we all are a part of.
Thank you very much, brother.
Right.
I think should have a show that deal with economics. We examine the words of autocracy and oligarchy. It was never intended for us to prevail.
You're right.
It was never intended.
You're right.
We do our homework. And so you hear people like Cornel West and others talking about oligarchy. Look it up. Autocracy. Look it up. What did Romney say? You're part of the 47% or the 1%. He said that, even though he was caught off tape. We must understand. And you're right. We want the panels and people in the audience. We can agree to disagree. But until we can, and this is a capitalist society.
Yes.
But you can be a capitalist with a moral compass.
All right. Thank you.
And not forget from where you came from. Because it's as simple as that. But I think that's the point for another program, Stan, to talk about the economic factors, because, it became very clear, if you read with all deliberate speed about the economy, why was Tulsa, Oklahoma burned down?
Hello.
After the Emancipation Proclamation, who are the best milliners? Who are the best, who? Because of, right?
Come on.
That's why it was burned down,
Come on.
because white customers outside of Tulsa would come into to buy and spend their money. And some white merchants were upset about it. Yes, they used the race card, but then the state of Oklahoma was complicit. The state was complicit. But it's been a very enlightening program for me. My mind is, I'm learning. Never too old to learn. We're never too old to learn. And common sense and the fire that I sense around this table and in the audience. Thank you very much for participating. Until the next time, the state of Black Hartford. Thank you. Uncensored. Uncensored.
Hartford, you put your trust in us. And we will honor that trust with transparency, with accountability, and with tireless hard work. We can't do it alone. Whether you put some new paint on your house, plant a new garden, mentor a neighbor, form a block watch, join your NRZ, in whatever way feels right to you, join us and put your shoulder to the wheel. This is your city, and your city needs you.
And it's time for us to stop being apologetic for wanting to be independent, self-sufficient, and being able to take care of ourselves, so we're no longer a ward of the state, and we need to make that declaration known. That Hartford is open for business, and we are not apologizing to anyone anymore. It's time to stop being reactionary and taking our rightful place as the municipal government of the capital city of the richest state in the nation, and stop saying we are sorry. Our time has come.